This is the Kybalion and Physics Part 2, Gravity. Just a quick recap of the last episode. I've explained that dark energy is the opposite of outward moving light, and it moves inward. I've explained the term inward parts to mean the tiniest measurements of dark energy. I've explained atomic vibration and the solidity in atoms, which quantum physics has not been able to do. And I've applied it to the periodic table. So let's move on. I'm now going to explain gravity, and it's actually very simple. By the way, quantum physics has not been able to explain gravity. They've tried a few times with a theorized particle called graviton, which that type of movement is not found anywhere in nature. Also, since they can't explain gravity, they've went even further using abstract math, came up with a theory called M-string, and through M-string they are now passing off gravity into some alternate reality or alternate dimension, and we are expected to accept that. This is peer-reviewed, by the way. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with peer-reviewed, but as far as that, if you're listening to this video, you are my peer. You review it for yourself. It's so simple that you can make up your own mind. Let's get started. So let's start with the space between atoms. The force that brings the two types of energy together to create atoms is the natural attraction between masculine and feminine. It is the first form of gravity. The space between atoms is also due to the relationship between masculine and feminine. The nuclei of atoms repel each other because they are masculine. The inward feminine parts of atoms are doubly attracted to the nuclei they surround and to that of other atoms. These two forces keep atoms together, but separate. Push and pull, outward and inward. These are the only two forces in nature, ruled by the natural attraction between masculine and feminine. Before we continue, we have to define a few things like weight. Weight is the measured pull of matter towards the Earth. The measurement of weight is also affected by density and size. The pull of gravity has a source. The stronger the source, the heavier the weight, and we'll get to that source in just a moment. Although the weight of an object can vary, its density stays the same. For example, a person standing on the moon would weigh a lot less than if that person were standing on the Earth because the moon's gravity is not that strong. Regardless of how many inward parts an atom has, the pull of gravity remains the same. The pull of gravity is the result of dark energy in atoms attracted to a larger outward source, despite being already attracted to their own nuclei. The attraction is singular, meaning that each inward part has the same attraction towards gravity, but that attraction does not increase when an atom has more inward parts. For example, a tiny pebble will fall towards gravity at the same speed as a large boulder. In a depressurized room, even a feather and a rock will fall at the same speed. So here it is, gravity. Gravity is the result of the basic relationship between masculine and feminine in atoms. If an atom has a larger nucleus, then the inward parts in smaller atoms would be doubly attracted to their own nuclei, as well as to the larger one that they are near. Anything that has inward parts, atoms, will move towards that larger outward source, bringing the nuclei that they surround with them. Things do not fall towards gravity, they move towards gravity because of attraction. The bigger the nucleus of an atom, the stronger the pull of gravity it has towards smaller atoms. The nucleus of an atom will repel free outward energy. For example, heat moves away from gravity because it is being repelled. It can be said that the nuclei of atoms are territorial because of the repelling force that they produce. Because of the rule of opposites, gravity is attraction and repel, not just attraction. Nature works through opposites, you see? A flame is being repelled away from the Earth. This would imply that at the center of the Earth there is a large atom with a large nucleus of heat and light. The inward parts in atoms are attracted to this larger outward source, so things move towards gravity, but free outward energy is instantly repelled, just like a flame. In fact, two flames will still repel themselves beyond the point where they should already be one flame, but the repelling force of the Earth is still greater. The current theory regarding fire is that it is believed to be consuming oxygen, pushing it upward. They call it buoyancy. But the current understanding of physics does not assume that the pull of gravity has an opposite, as explained by the laws of nature. Away from the repelling force of the Earth, away from gravity, a flame will repel itself, becoming spherical, because excited masculine energy repels itself. NASA has taken such a photo. Now, the Earth was included in my own illustration to indicate it was being in space. Yes, I like to paint everything out, as you can see. The explanation for why fire is excited energy can be understood by knowing what balancing energy is, which holds both masculine and feminine properties, and we'll talk about that in part 4, balancing energy, which is a definition of the electromagnetic field. Quantum physics has an equation that explains opposites in energy. This equation relates that opposite charges attract and similar charges repel. The word charges implies heat and light, which is masculine energy, so it has not been properly applied to understanding nature yet, for example, regarding fire. The logic of the laws of nature relate the same thing in a more specific manner. Masculine and feminine energy attract each other. Masculine energy repels itself. Charges also implies an excited state. Although light on its own can heat up something, it does not repel anything. Light must be excited for all of its different properties to manifest. Again, this leads to understanding what balancing energy is, and like I said before, we'll get to that in part 4. The center of the Earth's core can be more understood by understanding fire. They are the same, and so they repel each other, but one is stronger. There is a very large atom inside the Earth with a large nucleus made of heat and light. The inward parts in smaller atoms are attracted to the singularity. In other words, it is the source of gravity. It is why there appears to be something immensely heavy at the core. The nucleus of this large atom repels outward energy, like fire, because it is made out of excited heat and light, just like fire. The repelling force caused by the Earth's singularity keeps the sun's harmful radiation from destroying life on this planet, the same way that a flame gets repelled. Again, if you don't believe me, at least apply that equation. Opposite charges attract, similar charges repel. At this point, I'd just like to reiterate how light turns into excited light, or charges. Light inside its opposite, dark inward energy, is very much like a penis inside a vagina. And light being inside its opposite, it becomes excited the way that a penis would. That's how its different properties kick off, or shoot off. Yes, it works just like sex organs, and I will be making this case throughout the entire series of this project. What quantum physics fails to understand is that energy is also the source of nature, life itself. So, of course, I'm comparing sex to energy. It's either this, or you can go back to Armstrong, where gravity is being passed off to some alternate reality or dimension of which anything can be said. Right, peer-reviewed? But you can decide for yourself. Let's move on. Meteors. When meteors fall towards the Earth, it is quite a spectacle. The object falling towards the Earth will catch fire and burn up in the atmosphere, leaving a trail of fire in its wake. This is caused by the repelling force of the Earth in action. Comets. Comets have tails that get repelled away from the sun. No matter which way a comet is going, its tail faces away from the sun, just like a flame gets repelled away from the Earth. The closer a comet comes to the sun, the longer the tail. The fact that a comet's tail is repelled implies that the sun also has a large nucleus of heat and light, but it would be so much bigger than that of an atom. At the end of 2013, the entire world watched as Comet Ison made its perihelion around the sun, and it was extraordinary. I loved it. So let's define the word singularity. A singularity is the nucleus of an atom made of heat and light, pushing outward against the inward parts that surround it. The nucleus is all one thing. The size of a singularity can vary. Smaller singularities orbit larger ones. All bodies with a spherical shape have a singularity, atoms or celestial bodies. Planets, moons, and stars all have a singularity that are much bigger than atoms. The inward parts and atoms that surround these larger singularities are doubly attracted to their own nucleus and to the larger one inside these celestial bodies. A planetary singularity is large enough to be repelled away from the sun, but its inward parts keep it attracted to it. For example, the repelling force of the Earth's singularity keep this planet pushed away from the sun, while the inward parts on our planet are doubly attracted to its own singularity and to the larger one inside the sun. This keeps the Earth's orbit and spin. Orbit and spin are caused by the two forces that keep bodies apart and together, attraction and repel, push and pull. Basic physics, right? A smaller body would be attracted and repelled by a larger one. The singularities repel, the inward parts attract. The two forces would cause an orbit and or spin because the smaller body cannot completely move away nor completely move closer. Different variations of attraction and repel, as well as outside intervention, cause different orbits. Some are more elliptical. Let's talk about the moon. The moon has a singularity inside it that keeps it repelled away from the Earth. By logic, the moon's nucleus is not that big, which would explain why the moon's gravity is weaker than the Earth's gravity. The fact that it does not spin might have something to do with a magnetic property. The moon has an elliptical orbit, meaning that sometimes it's closer to the Earth and sometimes further away. Currently, some physicists claim that it is slowly moving away from the Earth, but if that were true, there would not be a harvest moon or supermoon. It's stuck in its elliptical orbit around the Earth. The moon is not going anywhere. The moon also produces an electromagnetic field, although it's very weak, just like its gravity. The fact that it produces both is indicative that it does have a large atom inside it. So just to finish off, there's one more experiment I'd like to explain, and it does deal with gravity because it deals with attraction, and that is the Cavendish experiment. So here it is. Two identical lead balls were placed on a balanced horizontal pole, holding them equally apart. The pole was hung above the surface. Two larger lead balls were placed on the surface near to them, and the hanging balls moved towards the larger ones. Another experiment showed a lead weight hanging on a scale. When a larger lead ball was placed directly beneath it, there was more traction of the lead weight towards the Earth. In other words, the weight increased, although very slightly. The attraction that keeps the same type of atoms together affected the objects when they were put in close proximity to each other because they were all made out of the same exact material. We naturally see this happen with other material like mercury or oil. In fact, in nature, we find the same types of species will stay together in groups. In example, herds, packs, schools, or flocks, etc. Even minerals are not found scattered upon the Earth. They are found in clusters, veins, or pools. Like attracts like, ruled by masculine and feminine. This occurs everywhere in nature. Nature is the same through and through. The experiment does not yield the same results when different materials are used. And I brought that up because when I looked this up on YouTube, there are different people trying to do this experiment, and they use bowling balls and iron rods, and of course it's not going to work because they're not using the same material. That was the key. Well, that's all for now. In the next section, we'll be talking about giant atoms. It's basically a continuation of this. I'll be giving you examples of two giant atoms, and you can see for yourself. Well, I hope it was simple enough for you to understand. Thank you so much for your time.